All right, welcome back, everybody. Please excuse my voice. I have a touch of a cold, so I have a little bit of a deeper sounding radio voice. Basically, we're going to be playing around with the ScrollSpy, which is a Bootstrap feature which lets you, basically, it automatically updates the active nav tabs based on the scroll position of the page. So when you scroll down on your page or within a container, the navigation menu associated with that container will update the tabs on which section of that page you are on. So if that doesn't make sense, let's just jump in and do it. So I created a page, scrollspy.html. Go ahead and copy the basic structure out, or copy and paste from the final course files. And make sure you only have the page header left and nothing in the container here so that we can code this from scratch. So the first thing that you're going to want to do here is make sure you we're going to add a navigation. Now, I'm not going to add it, I'm not going to add a global navigation bar. I'm just going to add a navigation bar that's specific to the container that we're going to add. And it can be a global navigation bar, meaning for the entire site, but I'm just going to do it a bit more local, so to speak. So nav class, nav bar space, nav bar dash default, and then I'm going to give it the ID of nav bar dash scroll. Now this is going to be used with the ScrollSpy. It needs to know what navbar to target, so that's what that will be for. Unordered list, obviously, and that's going to have the class of nav space navbar dash nav. Now this is a trimmed down version of the navigation bar. Before we had a lot of markup with the containers and the drop downs and all this sort of stuff. This is just a very trimmed down version of the navbar to serve for this purpose and show you the point. So the role is going to be tab list. It's just another kind of more semantic thing you can add to Bootstrap unordered lists for navigation bars. List item, ahref. And in here we need to, well, I'm just going to put text. I'm going to say get. And then the href needs to be a target. Well, it needs to be a £, and then the ID of what you're going to be targeting. So I'm going to say get. Copy and paste this 3 more times. Jiggy wit it. And then this will be the same. Get jiggy wit it. Get jiggy with it. I don't know if you guys know that Will Smith song, Get Jiggy With It. Anyway, I just wanted to make it a little bit more fun than saying 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so get jiggy with it. We got our navigation bar here. It should look a little something like this. Get jiggy with it. Just a basic navigation bar sitting here. And now we need to add like a box, a scroller box, so to speak. Now I'm going to add a div with the ID of scroller box. And there we go. It's going to have a few extra attributes here. Data spy. So this is the spy. It's going to data spy scroll. So the thing that's going to scroll, it needs to have the attribute data spy scroll. So this is basically what the navigation bar is going to spy on. Data dash target. This needs to target the navigation bar. Nav bar dash scroll is what we called it up here in the ID. Now in here, we need to put enough content that it's going to be tall enough that we can have a scroll bar. Now it's not going to have a scroll bar by default. We need to add that in the CSS. But I'm just going to add a whole bunch of HTML markup in here, and feel free to copy and do the same as I'm doing. So level 2 heading, this is going to be the ID of get, and then it's just going to say get. And then I'm going to add a whole bunch of paragraph tags. So just bear with me here. I'm just going to use my little ipsum to copy and paste 4 paragraphs. So there we go, 4 paragraph tags. Now I'm just going to go down, add another level 2 heading and say jiggy. And I think you get the idea here. Jiggy, paste. That's just going to have our jiggy. And then we're going to have more content here, level 2 heading. This is going to say wit. It needs to have the ID of wit. Paste. All right. Tab this in. And last but not least, gotta have it. It. ID it. Paste that HTML. There we go. So now we have a lot of content here in our browser. Get jiggy with it. But right now it's just going to scroll down like so, and you're not even going to see this navigation bar. And it doesn't update the navigation bar. It doesn't do it by default with those attributes. You need to do a couple more things. We need to get this text in a box that's going to scroll. So instead of scrolling in the body here, I want to scroll in here. And so let's go ahead and jump into our styles.css. And we're going to style up our scroller box. And I'm going to give it the styles. So position relative. Anything that is using the ScrollSpy the scrolling part needs to be position relative. Whether it's the body or a div or whatever else you're scrolling, it needs to be position relative for this to work. And height, because we're not using the body and we're trying to create a scroll bar within this other scroller box, we need to give it a fixed height, and then overflow auto or scroll, and that will make it scroll. I'm just going to give it a border so you can see it a little bit better. There we go. Save that. Now we've got our box here. Let me remove that border. And here we go. We have our scroller box with the border, and we have our nav. You can see the first tab is already active. If I were to click these, it will just automatically scroll to them. You can see it updates the URL address bar here, depending where you are at. And you can also scroll, and then it will update the navigation bar with the location you're at. And that's pretty cool. That's a good user experience depending on what you're building. You might, especially if you have a lot of content, say if you're reading a terms and conditions, or you're reading, I don't know, a really text-heavy page, having one of these scroll spies will actually be quite helpful, because not only can you just quickly jump to a target, but you can scroll and see when you're reading just a whole bunch of paragraph tags and whatever. You can see, oh, I'm in the wit section. I'm in the jiggy section. Get jiggy with it section. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's the ScrollSpy. You can also add it to the body. You just simply need to remove this nav from here and have it be, you could fix it to the top. Why don't we just do that? Why don't we just do it while I have you here? I'm going to say nav bar fixed -top in the class. That'll fix it up there. Get jiggy with it. Now, what if I didn't want it in a scroller box? What if I just wanted it out in the body? So, well, let's remove the scroller box for now, because I don't want to ruin everything. Just remove the scroller box, and now this should be sitting out in the body. But this doesn't quite work yet. And why is that? Because the scroller box had the data spy and the data target. So now we need to add that to the body tag. Data spy is scroll, and data-target is navbar-scroll. And here we go. Get jiggy, and then what? It jumps right down to it. It skips wit. Now, why is that? Well, it's kind of a little bit of a funny thing that happens with the ScrollSpy. Because the content of wit and it aren't very long, and the browser height, it basically doesn't let me scroll down. You could see wit doesn't quite hit the top of the browser here. So you could see, let me show you slowly. Once get hits the top of the browser, it activates. Once jiggy hits the top of the browser, it activates. But wit never gets to touch the top of the browser. And Bootstrap just assumes, oh, I guess we're at the end then because I stopped scrolling. So it goes to the last element. So if you were to shrink your browser, for example, then wit should show up, because now it will reach the top. Boom, there it is, wit, and then it. And you can then use this. And then if you have a really tall browser, you might not even be able to get jiggy. You can only just get it. You can't get jiggy with it. So you know what I mean? That would be solved with a bit of padding. Or if you had, like in our previous example, the scroller box, where you actually can control the fixed height of the element itself. And that will kind of, get rid of your problems when it comes to that. But that's just how the ScrollSpy works. Sometimes it's a little buggy. Sometimes you got to play around with, certain things like that. Works quite well. And I hope you loved it. So I'll see you in the next lecture.